should talk about political freedom or just simply have this flag around their shoulders. That's not a reason to be in jail. That's absolutely not the reason to be in jail. You have the freedom to wear this flag.
My name is Mehdi Casey, one of the organizers of the sit-in today at City Hall. We actually had a march from Embarcadero Plaza all the way here to in front of the city of San Francisco City Hall, and our goal really is to bring awareness to the rest of the world, particularly here in California, to all Californians in Northern California, that there are Algerians and Algerian activists, journalists who are in prison currently. There is an Algerian state that is ignoring all the asks or all the demands that the Algerian people are trying to come up with, such as elections, yes, but not with the same group of people who organized the last election for the last 50 years. We're saying yes, but not with journalists in prison. We're saying yes with elections not organized by the same Ministry of Interior, the same army, the same police. It cannot happen. We also say yes to elections, but in a climate that allows journalists, in Algeria in particular, to basically do their work in all freedom and liberty.
And the journalists have been arrested. Are they arrested for telling the truth about what's going on?
Absolutely, absolutely. They're not able to report exactly. In some cases, you have journalists who show up just like you do now, and then they're immediately taken by the police in civilian clothes. So, and even if they do a report and they allow them to do a report, and if it goes on the internet or on their Facebook page, these journalists might be arrested, and some have been arrested 2-3 days later.
And is this connected with struggles all over the world? Lebanon, it seems like the whole world is...
Absolutely, so exactly, this is a really good point you're making. So we, in the last 2 weeks, have seen a lot of talk about protests in Lebanon, Chile, Ecuador, Iraq, Pakistan, and yet we still don't see any news about Algeria, and yet Algeria is the longest lasting peaceful demonstration since February 22nd, so it's been almost 9 months and we haven't broken a traffic light, and yet we don't see any coverage. And I want to say that the Algerian people have true and unique ask, which is not any different than other peoples in Lebanon or Hong Kong are asking for. So yeah, to answer your question is we're asking the media to pay much closer attention. We know that the corporate media are in bed with many corporations, and we know how that multinational corporations are trying to put a lid on information on Algeria, whether it's oil and gas or other.
They have investments there.
Of course, absolutely, and
they want your
absolutely, exactly, and they're trying to keep a lid on information because they've had it for the last 50 years. They want to keep it as is, and they want to keep a status quo.
Free the detainees! 1, 2, 3! Free the detainees! 1, 2, 3! Free the detainees! 1, 2, 3! Free the detainees!
The repression is widespread. Activists who are trying to reclaim the Trade Union Federation for struggle to rebuild a real independent trade union federation are being jailed. Young people standing up are being jailed. The Berber people who are fighting for their national language and their rights are especially targeted. Lakhdar Burga, 86-year-old, one of the commanders of the Wilaya number 4 during the revolution, one of the most honored, decorated generals, never went along with the one-party regime that stifled the internal democracy and that made its peace with French colonial domination and has begun to turn over oil and other resources. He's spoken out against this. He's in jail, and he refused to testify last Wednesday. He was brought before the judge again. Have you recanted? And he said, I don't recognize this illegitimate government that's selling out our resources in our nation. Louisa Hanoun is one of those. She is a long-time leader in the women's movement, a long-time political activist, and she was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She's among all the different Algerian activists who are being targeted.
This privatization of the economy, how long has this been going on in Algeria?
It's been going on for at least at a serious level the last 5 years, and the people rising up, the Hirak, the uprising, has said the resources belong to us. We want a constituent assembly to reclaim and to take back the resources, oil and gas in particular.
How many people are there in jail in Algeria?
Scores. It's hard to know the numbers because they've detained a lot of young people and they don't release the names, and so there are a lot of disappeared, maybe up to 100. Some are very prominent. The one organization that's especially targeted is the RAJ, R-A-J, the Radical Youth Assembly. And they're in the streets. They are in the streets every Tuesday. Now, the numbers of people are staggering. Over 1 million people in the streets every Friday. Not every Friday 1 million, but at least once a month 1 million people, hundreds of thousands. And they're saying, out with this regime, down with this regime, we want our country back. There's a very strong, independent, autonomous unions in the education sector that have been there in the struggle from the very beginning. But the Union Federation that was born from the Algerian Revolution of '62 with heroes, martyrs, and that set up the UGTA, the General Union of Workers of Algeria, saw that union become more and more bureaucratized and more co-opted into the machinery of the state. It played for a while a semi-independent, semi-autonomous position, but in the recent period, it took a stand for the fifth presidential nomination of Bouteflika, and it's been on the side of the oppressor against the oppressed. Now, within the union, this is what's interesting. There are wilayas, which are the departments. Wilaya sections of the UGTA are an open rebellion, and they called for a new election, a new leadership. The union leadership rigged the election, and the union bases are organizing independently to rebuild a new and independent UGTA. They would like, the best scenario is to reclaim their union, which is not just born out of anything, it's their historic union. They want to take it back.
And the privatization, have the unions been fighting the privatizations of their economy?
Yeah, so there was a controversial law in the 2006, I believe, in Algeria that gave less rights. Exactly. It was mainly a law, like you said, related to the oil and gas exploration. And so what happened at that point is that the labor union laws were also changed, and from then on what also happened is that the state stopped giving licenses to have new unions. So the only union that works is UGTA from Sidi Said.
So the government approved unions are the only ones?
Correct. Correct. So they want to keep all unions within their own
corporatist control.
Correct, which is somehow similar here in the United States.
The opposition within the ranks of the oil workers, they went on strike this week. This week, the oil workers were on strike in Algeria in the port.
This morning. In Arzu, yeah.
So so they're not going along with the top leaderships selling out and selling the resources. And it was also reflected in the difficulty the government had in adopting laws to privatize. The reaction in Algeria that this is our nation. We fought a revolution to get rid of colonial domination, and we're not going to so easily turn over our wealth to to the recolonization of our country. So that struggle is going on every day in the unions, and more rank and file and sector-wide UGTA federations are in the streets of the Hirak, of the uprising, demanding an end to this regime dégage.
راهم دارونا في الجيب حنايا ما عندناش الكلمه كي تشوف لا فيديو ما عندناش الكلمه دون لو موند روح لاشي ستين ديكتاتور زعما مي عندهم الكلمه عندهم الكلمه عندهم بلاد ils ont exploré la lune ils ont même exploré la face cachée باش يبروفيو les États-Unis بلي ils sont plus forts que هادشي دي بيسونس راهم يطلعوا رانا حنايا ما عندناش والله راني نحكي لكم جتي ان ايتوديون البارح بارك نخمو على الماكله نو فرير كيفاش يخرج من بعد كومون فو فولي كي صور ان كادر دو لونيفرسيتي الجيريان باش نهضروا على لا بوليتيك كي سباس اون الجيري نهضروا نقعدوا زوج سوايع في لاشين باش ناكلوا البون فولي كومبروندر ما نقدروش نفهموهم من هنايا انا جزت من تما لازم نحي لا سوليسيون الجيري سي ديمي ايمي فوتر فرير فوالا هذا هي واش نقول
وراكم درتوه في الحبس ان شاء الله هو يخرج من الحبس ان شاء الله وان شاء الله انتم تدخلوا للحبس انتم تستاهلوا تدخلوا للحبس هو ما يستاهلش يدخل للحبس قال كلمه واش قال طيح السماء ما طيحش السماء باع لا كوكايين ما باعش لا كوكايين حرق جامع ما حرقش جامع راح الامارات ما راحش الامارات ولا تقيدوا ولا دخلوا للحبس عيب عليكم يا ناس فيقوا يا جزائريين فيقوا
My name is Ricardo Ortiz. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I'm a past and founding member of the Frente Socialista de Puerto Rico. I reside right here in the Bay Area, and I work closely with Labor Fest and Labor Video Project. I just want to say that I'm in support with the people of Algeria, the courageous people of Algeria that wage that long, heroic, inspiring war of independence against French imperialism that was such an inspiration to Latin America. This very same man that I have right here, my T-shirt in 65, went over there to Algiers and delivered his famous speech, in support of the Third World Revolutions. I just want to say that the fight that you are waving is the same fight that we are doing in Puerto Rico against colonialism and imperialism. We were able to throw out the governor of Puerto Rico through 2 weeks of intense rallying and protesting, and we finally made him leave. But still the fight continues against colonialism and against capitalism. I just want to wish you success and point out that your enemy is also the American imperialists that also support the French and the European allies colonizing the peoples of Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We, the Third World people, are one people exploited by one common enemy, be it the European Union imperialists, the United States, or whatever other imperialist power on the face of the earth. We, the workers of the world, have to unite, and I wish you victory and socialism in Algeria.
You're wearing a yellow vest?
Yes, it's not in reference to the yellow jackets or the yellow vest, les gilets jaunes in France that have actually exactly a year ago, started about a year ago in late November. And no, what's interesting about Algeria is that early on, when the Hirak, when this revolution started, a few people took some of these jackets to reference France, but then that changed quickly. We saw that the movement was much bigger than France, where probably the yellow vests in France started to wear Algerian flags. Yeah, it was true. I've seen sometimes in May or June in Paris people wearing their yellow vests and an Algerian flag. They may have been Algerians, as we know there's a big community there, but there were some basically probably saying, hey, look how peaceful we are, we can still do that. And I think the main thing what is going on right now about the yellow vests or in Algeria, I think that people are finally realizing that the liberal system is not working. Even the regular worker is not making it. Is not making ends meet, right? So whether it's Chile or Ecuador, Lebanon, particularly in Lebanon, when we see this youth going out with no jobs, no hope, all they think about is leave. And as far as the media, I think that the Algerian, I think Alan mentioned that earlier, and I've heard it about a couple of days ago, is that the Algerian state and the media in general does not want to give an example that, hey, look, you can organize peacefully and get what you want. The only information I saw on CNN, for instance, and you can prove me wrong if you want, if you're on Google and you type in Algeria, you have all sort of news, and then there are a lot of news, but if you pick the big media, Fox, CNN, they have very few news, and that picture is always showing a cop beating somebody, right? Or somebody breaking a car, which is, and if there is none of that, they won't cover it. So they will cover basically if there are any violence, to basically parallel violence with regular demands, really.